So my name is Dillon Mulroy. I am currently a software engineer at Vercel. I've been working professionally as an engineer for I'm into my 11th year now. I've mostly worked in full stack, TypeScript, JavaScript, React, Node, GraphQL, all that. I've had a couple stints in Go and a little bit of Elixir, and then I spent 2 years working full time, Camel, and fell in love with that and functional programming. Um, I do a lot of Twitch streaming, mostly around kind of like functional programming content and trying to like gap the divide between the TypeScript world and the FP world, because I think there's a lot of benefits of functional programming that doesn't involve all the jargon and math and theory, that is super practical. But yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Cool, right? I got some like icebreaker questions, some like quick fire ones.
Yeah.
Because they're always fun. I mean, okay. What is your favorite food item?
Ooh, I'm probably gonna go anything Indian. I love Indian food and curry and all the vegetables. Like, yeah, that's it.
Okay. Favorite superhero?
Oh, maybe Batman, I guess. I don't know. I've never really thought about it.
If you could have a power, what would it be?
Ooh, I feel like it would be like resolving stress for myself and other people.
Well, like a calming touch.
Yeah. We'll go with that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay. You are a full-time professional engineer hired by a company,
Yep.
so you have to do things that you're told to do. Uh, if you wake up in the morning and you have a bunch of stuff to do, but you're not feeling it, what is your go-to productivity booster?
Honestly, this is a great question. I have found that, well, one, I would say consistently for my time at Formidable in my previous job, like I've been pretty motivated to do my work. Like I like the stuff I'm working on. But if it weren't, like I found that streaming first thing in the morning, because like I wake up at like 6:30, and then I stream from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. and then go to work. Streaming in the morning, like is super nice because it gives me like that 3 hour window to work on the things I want to work on and that I'm excited about. And once I'm like up and have some coffee, like it is the time of day where I have the most energy and the most focus. So like just like that dopamine and serotonin boost from doing the work that I want to do with my own time or learn the things like that gives me that high to like kind of roll into my day job, and then I feel like I can kind of tackle anything after that. And it's like it's so different from like something weird happened with my body when I turned 30. I was never a morning person in my entire life. Hit 30 and suddenly like, yep, we're waking up at 6 a.m. now. But like before, I've always been doing side projects and working on open source ever since I was like 12 or 13. And it's hard to do it at night, right? Especially when you have a family and stuff going on, go to the gym, like might be burnout from work that day. So it's like you might get to that time to do the things you're really excited about, but just be so low energy and burnout. And just like flip flopping that has made a huge positive difference in my days and the way I tackle work.
So I feel the same in the 30-year-old department. So I'm 33, and the mornings are fine, but I have young children, so I don't have
Yeah.
a choice, right?
Yep.
I can't stay up late.
Oh, I can't anymore either.
Can't. No, I don't think I've seen the other side of midnight in years. Years. Not seen it. You alluded that you have a family.
Yes,
Just
no kids. I have
no
a
kids.
fiance and 3 dogs.
Okay. So I wonder. You stream. You have side projects. You have work, etc. What, like, sort of, what's the right word? A sacrifice is not the word, but how do you manage your time so you can meet all of these and give them all the attention that they need?
I really think the answer is kind of, again, just starting early. Like, I wake up, I mean, Justine, who's my fiance, she doesn't probably get up till 8 or 9. And like, our time together is at evening when we get off work, cook together, hang out, watch TV, go for walks, whatever it might be. Um, yeah, it's just like, as unfortunate as the reality is, waking up early is a bit of a life hack.
True. Yeah, it's funny actually because I was like applying for a job. I think it was one of my first like DevOps roles where I was no longer a sysadmin. I was really stepping into that like, okay, let's use every tool type job, right? I'd never used AWS before, and they needed me to. So I decided that I would get up at like 5 a.m. every morning for like 2 weeks and just study for an exam and then just do the exam, like in between interviews. And it was crazy because like that time didn't previously exist.
Right.
I like gave myself like 14, maybe 32, 38 hours, like 2 hours every morning.
Yeah, yeah.
For 2 weeks, I just gave myself that time out
Yep.
of nowhere.
Yeah, it's like it's a hard habit to start, but once you have it down, it is, yeah, you get these free buckets of time, free time basically, to do the things you want. And yeah, that's been probably the biggest positive change in my life in the past 2.5 years.
Okay, staying on that, streaming.
Yeah.
Streaming. How, if at all, do you think it's positively affected you?
I would say it's really only positively impacted me. One, building my brand and my network. I don't have a ton of really. I have one friend in real life that is in kind of the tech field. So just like having that outlet with the people that are consistently showing up on stream, like that is the people in the community I get to share my passion with, programming and tech outside of my coworkers. And then just like it's helped lead to speaking opportunities at conferences and potential job opportunities. And yeah, I've also gotten a lot of the stuff I've worked on and done on stream over the past year, like it would be things that I would have never learned or explored through work, right? And like it could be compilers and parsers, or it could be different programming languages, or like, whatever it is, like all these things I just would have never had the time or opportunity to do otherwise. And it's been, yeah, it's been awesome.
So again, like I'll build on that. You mentioned personal brand.
Yeah.
A lot of people are doing that now, like especially the Vercel guys. Right? That's what I mean. Like the sort of you, Jay. A lot of people are building these personal brands on the side of their role. You mentioned, and I'm sure it's the same for other people, that it's allowed you to get talks.
Yeah.
And talks will only explode that even more, right?
Right.
Like, do you think as an engineer having a personal brand is important?
It's interesting because like I'm not intentional about it, and I think that's why it works well for me. And like I think there's a well, let me back up a little bit. I don't do anything intentional about building my brand. Like when I stream, I don't do anything that I think is clickbait. Like I do the things I want to do, and I don't like. I could have 5 people in chat showing up, or I could have 150. It doesn't make a difference to me because the people that are showing up are the people that like I want to interact with, or the people that care about the kind of things I care about. So like I don't really go out of my way to explicitly build my brand. And kind of where I was trying to drive this answer is like what you see from me on Twitter or on stream like is just me, like my authentic self. Like I don't try to put on a character. I don't say things to try to rile people up for the sake of riling people up. It's just like I want to tweet about things I'm interested in or care about. I want to stream things I'm interested in, care about. And I think there is a strong desire for that type of authenticity, especially from content creators, because I think a lot of people in the space have, I guess, more of a character to them than anything. And I think also just like, I get a lot of people coming into my stream that are like, you know, junior or mid-level devs. And I think it's really rewarding for them to see like a staff level engineer struggling with problems, learning things, seeing what it's actually like to work on larger scale projects, like, and, you know, just being authentic and real about it. So like, my brand is me, and I don't really do anything to build it other than be me. And it just has, I'm still blown away that I have the amount of followers on Twitch and X that I do. Like literally like a year and a half ago, before I started streaming, like, you know, I sit at like 450 people on Twitter and obviously 0 followers on Twitch. And it's just like blown up. So like, yeah, my advice to people would just be like, be your authentic self. And like, especially on Twitter, like just tweet your thoughts. If you think something's cool, just yeet it out there.
So I'm looking at your Twitch now, like 5.3K.
Yeah, it's wild. It is. I still don't understand it or like believe it most days. It's yeah.
It's interesting though, like the whole like developer, that whole category after pirate software sort of blew up. Is really becoming popular. Like I didn't stream last week. I was off yesterday, so I haven't streamed this week. But like the 3 weeks prior to that, I was streaming my entire workday because I work in open source, so I'm like, I can, right? But all I'm doing is streaming myself, handling GitHub issues, PRs, and writing some Markdown. Right? That's it. But people will show up, and people like being there, which is crazy.
It's like it's a good sense of community, I think. Like, I think there's probably a lot of people that are like me that might not have these social circles in real life where they have other engineer friends. And like, before I ever started streaming, I would hang out in other Twitch streamers' channels, and like, you know, I still got that similar sense of community once, like, you know, you kind of became a regular in channels. And yeah,
I guess the answer to the whole like personal brand thing is more of a parallel answer of you should just put yourself out there more.
Yeah. Put yourself out there in an authentic way.
Yeah, just post things, right? We don't have to cover like education if you don't want to or anything, or we can. But there would have been a time where you like signed a contract or said, yeah, I'll do it, to like your first professional software engineering job.
Yep.
How did you acquire that job? What steps did you take to learn what was required?
Yeah, I can try to run through this quick. So I started programming at like 12 or 13 after I took a course in middle school. It was a Visual Basic 6 course, and I got like super hooked. Started playing around with like web design and JavaScript. And then like later in high school, got really into World of Warcraft and started writing plugins in Lua. So did that, and then I went to university for computer science, but I went to a really tiny state school in Pennsylvania, and it had like I don't know, probably a below average CS program, but like, you know, not the worst thing in the world. Fell apart my first semester. 2 professors basically retired, and then the third, who was the head of the program, who had like designed it to be worth anything, got arrested by the FBI on campus for running a tour service off the computer labs. And then the rest of my education was kind of a joke. So mostly self-taught. My first job, I don't really know why this company recruited interns from my university, but State Farm, which is an insurance company in the United States, they recruited software and business interns from our campus. Fortunately landed that my sophomore year, and did that 2 years in a row, and they gave me a full-time offer. And my first job was with them doing enterprise Java and some web dev stuff.
Okay, pretty, apart from the hiccups at university, pretty standard, I'd say.
Yeah.
Okay, what about the? I feel like I've been in a situation with companies where to you being there now might not mean that much, but to people from the outside, you being at Vercel is very big. Like people being at Meta, people being at Google, they're all very big jobs.
Yeah.
So how do you? Because I think it's good to like demystify getting into these big companies. Like, what was
Yeah.
the process like for you joining Vercel?
So, because my CS education is basically self-taught, I've always had like a pretty strong uh, sense of imposter syndrome in the back of my head when like comparing myself to other devs, especially people working at like Fangs and stuff. Um, I would say the really big turning point in my career that kind of put me on a probably more successful path than I would have been on otherwise was joining Formidable Labs, which was a pretty popular consultancy, JavaScript consultancy, like 2016 to 2021 ish. Some of the React Native core members were there, some early GraphQL people. Like, so at the time, a lot of the best JSTS people were at Formidable. And the way I got there was I was working at the DoD in the United States, and I was working on building radar analysis tooling. And they had Formidable had a popular React library at the time called Victory Charts, and had a really nice API, but it rendered to SVG. Radar signals have a ton of points in the screening one, so SVG didn't work. And I started implementing the same API to render Canvas, GPU accelerated. Started talking with the maintainers on Victory Charts back and forth, and they told me to apply. And I was like, I am not going to land this job. And somehow I landed the job, and then got to spend like the midsection of my career like working with all these really brilliant people. And so it was a consulting job too, which I think spending time consulting was probably one of the most valuable things of my career. I say it somewhat often on Twitter, but like I genuinely think the hardest problems in tech are not technical in nature, like caching or cache invalidation, naming things, scaling. It's always people, process, and company organization. Those are the hard problems to solve, and those are problems you regularly have to solve consulting and overcome. So that job is the one that both taught me really valuable kind of soft or catalytic skills in dealing and working with people. And then I also got to become a very deep expert in TS and JS, learning from all those people. And I also, while consulting, like I was getting dropped into startups, to Fortune 500s, to even Fangs. And the thing I kind of learned was that like after having consulted and worked with a bunch of Fang engineers, it was like, they're not this like mythical 10x developer. Like they're just like me, and yeah, maybe they have some skills to game the interview process a little bit better, but like when it comes to it, like I'm just as good as an engineer as they are, and most people are. So that also helped my confidence a bit, and that kind of just carried forward.
What one skill, and we're talking soft, hard, what one skill do you think aspiring engineers should focus on? And by aspiring, let's include like they might have had an internship, but they haven't really had a professional job yet.
Yeah. So I would say it's kind of a cop out. I'll give a soft skill and a hard skill because I think they're equally as important. Hard skill is technical curiosity and not being afraid to pull back the covers of the tools and abstractions library code you're using. And even if it makes no sense, just struggling to learn and look at what it's doing under the covers. I think that is an amazing way to learn. And just, yeah, generally being curious and passionate about our craft. And then, which has mixes of soft skills in it, but on the soft skills side, learning to communicate your ideas, your technical ideas effectively and clearly such that non-technical stakeholders can understand the benefits of them, I think is really, really important. And over time, learning how to be persuasive in selling those ideas.
So I'll cut this bit out of me talking now because it's not a self-promo thing for me. But that's exactly what my talk last week was on.
Hell yeah.
That's exactly what it was. So I'm glad you agree. Like just getting buy-in
Yeah. Yeah.
in general, full stop, getting buy-in from anyone at any stage is like a super key skill. So I'm glad that we both agree on that one. So you're in the JSTS world, right?
Yep.
Next.js, I assume, given you're at Vercel.
I'm less of an expert on Next. I mean, I know Next very, very well. I have used it less. I mean, I use it professionally every day at work, right? Vercel is like the oldest Next app in the world. We dog food all our own stuff, but I've been doing a lot of mostly back end work at Vercel. I'm working on our domains product. I'm the lead of the domains product at the moment, and working on kind of improving that whole system and experience for both our support teams and our customers. But yeah, if I had to pick a stack, it would not be JSTS. It would actually probably be full stack OCaml, or maybe Gleam, depending.
Okay, you are. I asked somebody on X the other day to like nerd snipe me with something. Do you know what nerd sniping is?
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of them said OCaml, like go learn OCaml, and I was like, They said Haskell first, and I was like, I don't want to do that. Like, but OCaml, a lot of people are saying OCaml. So
OCaml. So I had that opportunity to work in OCaml for a year and a half, between a year and a half and 2 years, and it was the most positive technical experience that I've had as an engineer. It without a doubt made me a better engineer and developer, working in TypeScript, working in Go. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, what I learned from writing OCaml, which I think is a really good application of like pragmatic real world functional programming. I think there's a lot the JS and TS community can learn from functional programming. And kind of like I said earlier, like, I think a lot of FP content gets caught up in monads and functors and blah, 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 blah. And that's not important. And the real world day-to-day applications of it, I think, is important and makes a huge impact. And I think if anyone is listening to this and wants a good taste of what FP's really like without the jargon and kind of theory overhead, I would say jump into Gleam. Gleam is a sister language to Elixir, which recently came out. It can compile to both the Erlang VM, which has an amazing concurrency model, and it can also compile to JavaScript and generate TypeScript types. It shares the same type system as OCaml, so you get a lot of the benefits of OCaml, namely like bulletproof type inference. Type inference works very differently in languages like Gleam and OCaml than it does in TypeScript. It was just a foundational shift in my perspective on solving problems.
Okay, you said Gleam.
And yeah, the Gleam docs and intro and the playground are just absolutely, or the tour, I should say.
Yeah, I have to have, like, Kotlin does it very well. Their website and their docs are very nice to look at.
Yeah.
If I'm gonna spend my time in something, it has to look good, right?
Yeah.
Gleam looks nice. OCaml looks good. I'll have a look tonight. I like doing the advanced Hello World.
Yeah.
That I sort of have. Hello World's never enough, right? It's just to look at something.
I have an app too that I use to learn new stacks and languages.
Yeah, my way of doing it is always, I want to be able to ask for user input, take user input and store it, and then reuse that input in some way, like a simple game, a simple game or something, you know.
The app I do to learn is I implement OAuth for Spotify's API from the command line. So basically, how that works is you run it, it will, in the background, spin up a temporary HTTP server with a single endpoint, which will be like the callback URL. and then it opens the user's browser to authenticate or give permissions for OAuth. And then the redirect is localhost slash like OAuth or whatever, hits that, it communicates back to the main thread or whatever like however your concurrency model works, and then authenticates and gets the token. And like it's just like it nails the concurrency model, it nails HTTP stuff, it nails working with kind of system calls. I love that as a way to get like a good vibe for a language.
Okay, maybe I'll start with my one. And then,
it's a lot simpler than it sounds. I promise, it's so much easier than it sounds.
Okay, that sounds good. OCaml has been spoken about. I've heard it, so I will jump into it. I did Zig for like people were talking about Zig, right? So I did some stuff in Zig. It feels nice, but it's cool. So we're talking about these languages. Let's talk about resources to learn them. It doesn't have to be like, you want to learn Gleam, go do the run through, go to the website and do that. But let's talk more like maybe language agnostic places or types of material to learn. What do you recommend for learning new languages and new frameworks?
I'm gonna answer this question quick, and then I'll have to let a dog out. But I'll be right back. So my general advice is, and like I get people coming to stream like all the time, like almost daily, being like, what should I build to get better, or what can I build to learn? And like my advice always is basically find an idea that you think would be fun to build. Like, even if you have no idea where to start, how to do it, doesn't matter. If you're not building something that you want to do and interests you and excites you, there's going to be a high degree you're going to fail and it's going to drop off and you're not going to see it through or get the amount of learning you would otherwise get out of it. So just think of something that would be cool to build, whether that's, a web app for your family doing groceries or, a game or whatever it is. Just struggle through learning it. You're not going to know how to do a lot, and you're going to have to Google, and you're going to have to ask ChatGPT, and you're going to have to go Stack Overflow documentation and reading manuals and maybe other people's codes. And a lot of this is going to be overwhelming, but like the reality of it is like, that's what this job and profession is. It's hitting problems you don't know what the answer is and having to struggle and figure it out. And that like deep and hard struggle produces the most quality learning, or deep learning. Okay.
Yeah, I like that. That makes sense. I'm going to do that tonight for OCaml. I'm going to.
Feel free to DM me, and I will help you all the way. I'll send you some stuff. I gotta take this dog out quick. I will be right back.
Yeah. You mentioned open source before.
Yep.
You are a advocate for open source, I would say. Do you think that being involved in open source is important for a developer?
Not necessarily. I think it is if you have significant and real contributions, I think it is a good signal when it comes to hiring. That being said, I don't consider it a requirement, and some of the best devs I know and have worked with have no open source contributions. Has it been important for me in my career? Maybe a little bit. And so like I ended up being a core maintainer of victory charts for a year and a half maybe, and that was a really good experience, but like I don't think it necessarily taught me all that much or gave me an advantage. Maybe just on my resume. The things, I have 2 NeoVim plugins that are relatively popular, which I think are, I don't know, I feel those are the things I'm kind of most proud of in my open source. But more broadly, I would say like, don't do open source for the sake of open source. Like either start contributing to a project and tool you use, Again, you might have no idea how to get started or how to work on it, but it could be documentation fixes. It could be just reading the code base and finding little places where you could see a little optimization, or even asking maintainers on like good first issues. I think if you're just going to GitHub and trying to find any old repo to contribute to, I think it's going to be a similar problem as I mentioned earlier, where like I really feel strongly that you need to be motivated and passionate about the things you're working on. Otherwise, you're going to burn out, or you're not going to do your best work. Yeah, I think that would be my advice.
Okay, so you work in a pretty cutting edge company. You try and learn things that interest you all the time. What about like trends, especially trends that affect things that you like? How do you keep on top of it?
Yeah, I feel like this is ultimately something you just learn with time and tenure, is like figuring out the signal from the noise in trends. I was very much, 7 to 10 years ago, that super excited junior dev, mid-level dev that just wanted to try every single new thing that came out and introduce it to the code base. And I still get very excited about things that come out, but like I have a better eye for what I think is going to make my life, my team, my users' lives better. Rather, and like what makes sense to use and when. I think a good example of this recently is Effect.ts. I was incredibly skeptical of Effect at first. Like I said, I was that kid that was like, oh, I just found Lodash and Ramda and RxJS, and I've made messes in code bases before. So seeing Effect up front, I was like, this has vibes of all those things, of mistakes I've made before. But then I used my time streaming and my side projects to, I saw elements in it that, one, I really learned from OCaml, and two, elements from languages like Golang. And I can separate those two things and describe what I mean by that if you want to dive into the weeds. But like I saw traits in Effect that were in other stacks that I've built very successful, very stable software and built very good teams around. So despite the initial kind of knee-jerk reaction I had to it, I wanted to explore it, and explored it on stream, built some pretty significant projects with it. And now it's a library that I will use in all backend TypeScript going forward. On the other hand, let me think of like something else, that like Drizzle, right? Drizzle is a super popular ORM. I also, I've been a big fan of Prisma for a long time. And like Drizzle's the hot new kid on the block on Twitter. And I was like, all right, let's see what this is about. And I built some side project stuff with it. And I found that like it didn't live up to the hype. And it's not something I feel comfortable introducing into a real code base. And then there's a million other things that come out here and there, new CSS frameworks, new whatever it is. It's you kind of just have to learn to like pattern match on the things that enable you to either move quicker and more importantly, make better software, whether that is for your end users or enabling your team and organization to build better.
I also feel, I know this question was about trends, but I also feel that in the context of juniors and aspiring engineers, it's very important what you spend your time learning.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, Zig and languages like that. People on Twitter say it's cool, but how many people are employed in salaried jobs doing Zig? Like, yeah, you could learn this language and you could learn good concepts from it, but I
think I have very different advice for people learning to find a job versus people learning to become a better developer. I think those are like two totally different streams of advice.
Yeah. Well, we're talking, the one you gave is good. We're talking about like latest trends as a developer, I guess. That's fine. Okay, interesting one, especially considering that you work at a company that has V0,
We do have
which
V0.
is which is great, by the way. I use it all the time. Admittedly, I do hop between GPT and V0.
Same.
I'll give it snippets. One might handle it better, but together they're like a good couple, right?
Yep. Same workflow.
Yeah. So, what is your? Occasionally, I'll trickle in Claude as well. Claude might
I,
have a
I had
different
a
opinion.
I recently canceled my Claude subscription because I found that for a while Claude was definitely giving me way better technical output than ChatGPT.
Mm.
And then I just noticed over time, because like I have an enterprise license at Vercel that we have with OpenAI for ChatGPT that like doesn't retain our data, doesn't train on it and stuff. So like when I'm at work, like I'm using ChatGPT if I'm not using V0. Um, and I just found like the technical ability of ChatGPT, especially with some of the newer models, started catching up with Claude, or maybe Claude was regressing. And I was like, I'm just going to use my work license. Like, I don't want to pay this extra $20. Um, so that's kind of where
Yeah.
I landed.
I also dropped Claude. I'm still in my notice period of Claude, where I still have it. I'm paid in with V0 and GPT. They make a good pair. But the point of this is, what is your opinion on the future of software development, especially given tools like, V0 and GPT? Well, V0 is relatively new, but the other ones didn't exist too long ago, and they've already come leaps and bounds. So
Yeah. I'll take off my Vercel hat for a moment, because I might have a different opinion than maybe my company and some of my coworkers might have. But um, I think AI is important, and I think it's going to be a tool we use. But I think it's also overhyped and over-indexed on. I think at the moment it is. If you're, I think at the moment it's more of a detriment to junior devs, mid-level devs, and code bases if it's given too much responsibility. And I can expand on that. I had used in-editor AI for close to 2 years, year and a half, and then I ripped it out because I really just came to realize that more and more it felt like I was pairing with a really eager junior developer or mid-level developer, and I was spending more time code reviewing than solving the problem at hand, and it was knocking me out of like a flow state. And like in general, I think while AI does like a reasonably good job, especially like V0 is very, very good at spitting out very specific like React, Next.js, Svelte, Tailwind. Like it is very, very good at that. It's tailored to do that from the inside. And like even then, I use it like literally its name, right? V0. It is a starting point. Um, I don't like having AI interrupting my workflow. I like being able to use it when I want to use it, and I generally really only use it for boilerplate type tasks. Like I have a custom GPT trained on Vitest and Fast Check, and seeded with a bunch of high quality tests that I've written in the past. And I will have it spit out unit tests for new code for me. And then rather than spending an hour writing the boilerplate for unit tests, I will review that code and make changes and improve the test. And what would take an hour of writing tests is now 15 minutes. I think it's amazing for that. Or like in a language like Gleam, you serialization and deserialization from JSON isn't as easy as it is in TypeScript and JavaScript, and you have to write some boilerplate code. That's a task I would toss to ChatGPT. I think it's a detriment right now to junior devs and people learning, because while it will spit out working running code, oftentimes there are just very insidious, hard to see bugs in there. And yeah, I don't know. I appreciate it, and I think it will get better and better, but I really don't see it replacing the jobs of good engineers entirely.
Yeah, I mean it's a tool, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. It's a tool. Awesome. So let's wrap up with, if you were speaking now, which technically you will be, to aspiring young engineers, what final words of encouragement do you have for them?
Yeah. My advice to junior devs or aspiring devs and engineers out there is to always be curious. Don't be afraid to pull back the curtains on the tools and languages and frameworks and libraries that you use. Work hard to master your tools, whether that's your terminal, your editor, your library or language of choice. If you do these things over time, they'll compound just like interest, and you will outpace your peers and be better off for it.
Awesome. And what about a final plug? Anything that like hot ones,
Yeah.
Tell the people what's going on.
Yeah. So if I had to plug anything right now, I'm going to do two. First, and two for the same reason. First, I would plug Effect.ts. I think Effect.ts is an amazing framework. I consider it essentially the missing standard library for TypeScript and Node. And having worked in this ecosystem for a very, very long time, it has all of the things that it is dearly missing and helps build much more reliable and quality software, even if it has some unfamiliar patterns at first. The second thing I would plug is if you have an interest in functional programming, and again, building and learning a real FP language was the most positive thing I've done as an engineer, go check out Gleam. Gleam is the friendliest intro to functional programming that I know of. And if you ever get caught up on either of those topics or want to chat more, find me on Twitter or Discord or wherever, and feel free to DM me.
Perfect. Sounds like a plan.